Okay, so here's a little more background to the workshop. I am a clinical neuropsychologist, and I've been practicing for 14 years. And what I do is I do these formal assessments to provide objective data and information, and to kind of help sort out what the kind of underlying causes of learning differences are, and then diagnosis and treatment recommendations. So that's kind of my professional role. And where I'm coming from. It's very quantitative, and it's a pretty there's a lot of gravity in it, right? Because it's helping to acknowledge this really, oftentimes a source of distress, and sometimes a source of shame for kids, and kind of helping to bring that to light, bring it to the table, and then kind of creating a path forward. So that's kind of what I do in my day job, right? And a lot of you have seen me for that. For that process, and I'm always left with this feeling of wanting to go further and wanting to kind of use my clinical experience and knowledge to help people kind of in the next chapter. Right? So it's almost like there's, the chapter of the struggle, right? And then there's the chapter of acknowledging the struggle and picking up the phone and saying, like, I think we need an evaluation. That's like a chapter in and of itself, right? And then there's the chapter of the evaluation itself and sitting down with me and going over the diagnosis. And then there's the chapter of giving the report to the school, right? And kind of the nitty gritty of setting up accommodations and interventions and tutorings and next steps. And what this workshop is kind of for is like the chapter after that. We could almost like call the subtitle of the workshop like the chapter after. And so the idea is kind of that my role will be kind of coming from this place of understanding the diagnosis, understanding the underlying mechanics that kind of create the environment that those learning differences kind of exist in, right? And then understanding kind of what that means in everyday life. And you guys, bringing in this other aspect of my experience as a psychologist, which is compassion, right? And practices that can help us, like anyone, right? As a parent or an adult or a child or whoever, right? These practices that can help us to reconnect with that really wise, intuitive, loving part of ourselves, and accentuate that and grow that and nourish that, and then using that to then kind of circle back to the learning differences, right? And kind of almost like revisiting chapter by chapter, right? Like the struggle, the phone call, the diagnosis, probably like the current nitty gritty of school systems and tutoring and homework and entering middle school and stuff like that. And then you guys, with that, okay, then being able to kind of look at the vista, right? And kind of getting our heads above water to start to articulate our vision for the future, right? Like kind of like for ourselves, for a kid, but articulating that vision for the future and bringing some words to it and bringing some images to it, some really like bringing reality to it. So it takes a little maneuvering, right? It takes a little scurrying, right? Like to kind of get to the high point where you can see the vista, you know, and so we'll scurry together, right? And I'll help you through that, right? I'll be a little bit of a guide for you, and then and it's gonna like be, you know, a process, right? You're up and down. You're not just like boop, there I am at the high point and I'm there forever, right? It's gonna be a process, right? And kind of being able to give you some practices so that when you kind of have those moments where you're like, oh boy, I'm at a vista, right? Where you can say, oh, okay, here's what I'm going to do to articulate the vision, right? And to bring imagery to my vision for the future, right? For my child, for myself, right? And so that when you're at those points of kind of clarity, you know, and connection, that you can call upon these practices to bring the dream and the reality kind of together to meet each other and then watch it kind of happen. So that's the story. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you're excited, because I am.